out before patch 1 hits, just in case there are important balancing changes, because I want these videos to be representative of the game at release. And if there are changes that warrant a new faction video, I will make a new video detailing the changes made to the faction and how it affects their capabilities. So, we have the Vandals. They have the standard Germanic noble general, a fairly tanky general with low melee capabilities. Nothing special about him, he can just tank a few missiles and stand up to infantry for some time. He is not frontline infantry, however. The Vandal Warlord is a great cavalry unit. Decent amount of armor, decent amount of health. The reason why he's so great is because there aren't many generals that have excellent attack against cavalry, so there aren't many generals armed with spears, basically. This guy is, so he has a decent charge bonus, he has a very good melee defense, decent armor, decent health, not as tanky as some of the other cavalry generals, but he does scare everyone, and he is immune to fear himself. He has precursor javelins, which helps him a bit in a cavalry engagement. Also frenzy, questionable utility, it can be used if he's already exhausted or already tired. And he also has the diamond formation. For spear infantry, your standard Germanic levy, very light, they will die to cavalry in droves if they get charged. They do have the spear wall, expert charge and resistance to fatigue, however. A step up, we have the Germanic spears. You get a significant amount of health more, you get more armor, a more tanky unit, but they don't have precursors. Then the Germanic Spearmasters, great stats overall. Precursors as well, they have the expert charge of course, but they also have headhunt, so if this unit is about to break, you can activate headhunt and guarantee that they will stay in the fight for longer, which means that they potentially can take down some more cavalry units before they break. Cheap Germanic pikes can be useful as a screen in front of your army. Very hard to use these guys offensively, but they can be nice to protect your center or your flanks. For melee infantry, the Vandal roster is a bit lacking. They have the noble Germanic swords. These units do relatively well in shield wall. Not a great charge bonus, but they are useful as defensive sword infantry. The noble Trebi swords are absolute beasts in armor, health, melee damage, a bit low on the melee attack side, a bit low on the charge side. In shield wall, they are super dangerous. They also have throwing axes that they can use to deadly effect against infantry. You basically want to get up as close as possible with these throwing axes. They have a 25 bonus versus infantry. If you can get a volley off up close, it will be devastating, but the axes are super inaccurate at the range. Vandal berserkers, yes, they are better than the Norse berserkers. Still not a good unit. They have rapid advance, scare, they can go berserk, but due to their very low health, very low armor, they can't really get good use out of their good melee attack because they will die very rapidly. They are also light, they are super fast, but very expensive. Axe infantry, the Germanic band and the Germanic war band has all of the problems associated with axes, namely that they lose in head-on engagements to similarly priced swords. So with the Germanic war band you get the scare effect, you get a bit more armor, you get slightly better stats than the Germanic war band, but these units are not good units. The fair effect isn't substantial enough to warrant bringing Germanic warband, in my opinion, because they are just not they don't perform well compared to something like the noble Germanic swords. The noble Germanic swords also have disciplined and encourage, so you definitely want the noble Germanic swords instead of the Germanic warband. Now we have the standard Germanic bows and the standard Germanic hunters, not very good units. The Germanic archers are great, the most cost-effective archers in the game because of their great range, good missile damage, a nice amount of ammunition, precision shot, flaming, basically everything you want from a decent archer unit. They are also very cheap, they can't take skirmish fire, but with their 200 range they can kite exceedingly well. The elite Germanic archers have a bit more armor, they have a bit more ammo, They have rapid advance as well. However, I much prefer the Germanic archers because that allows you to save funds on skirmishers that you can use for other units. We have the Germanic crossbows, both precision and barrage. These basically have the same damage potential per volley as the elite ballistari, so they are very deadly, but they also die very, very quickly. Germanic hurlers, low armor, decent amount of missile damage, but all of that is base. There is no armor piercing on them. Their projectiles, however, will slow down enemies, so it can be a nice unit to bring. Don't bother. Germanic mounted warband, too little armor, too little health to be of much use. Also being very light is a massive problem for them. But in my opinion, the main strength of the Vandals is that they have 2 mid-tier melee cavalry units. So the Alani horsemen have less health, less armor, less everything basically than the superior Germanic horsemen. Germanic horsemen are only slightly slower than the Alani horsemen. The Germanic horsemen are heavy, so the only reason you would want to bring Alani horsemen as well is because you can upgrade them, and you can have them in addition to Germanic horse if there's a limit on how many units of the same, how many you can bring of the same unit. So if you can only bring 4 or 6 Germanic horsemen, for example, it can be very nice to supplement with the Alani horsemen. The noble Alani cavalry, heavy melee cavalry, is a strong cavalry unit, but it is not great compared to the Germanic horsemen. However, the combination of Germanic horse and noble Alani cavalry can be very nice, because in terms of price, noble Alani cavalry is sort of sub-elite cavalry, and they are absolutely decent units. The Cavalry cavalry wouldn't bother due to their relatively low health, armor, and only having 2 precursor arrows. It's just a horrible time for the Cavalry. If these units were to be viable, they would have needed more ammo, and maybe also Parthian shots. Not entirely sure about that for precursors, but maybe not. But still, just having the ability to fire on the move with their precursors would be very nice, and also having more precursors. The Vandal Raiders, they are another don't bother unit. They have 2 precursors, which is good, but they also have a lot of single player specific abilities. They have rapid advance and stuff like that, but their melee stats are just... Their melee defense is very good, but with 15 armor and 174 health, they're going to die very easily. Noble Germanic horsemen, also a strong unit, not that much better than the Germanic horsemen. Germanic horsemen upgraded to the same price as noble Germanic horsemen will handsomely defeat the noble Germanic horsemen. And then we have a supremely useless unit, the chosen Vandal Raiders. I have no idea what the Creative Assembly thought when they made this unit. 1,025 for a 175 health, 15 armor unit that has 2 precursor missiles. It's so incredibly useless, this unit. I can't even begin to comprehend what they're thinking. And I saw that in the Longobards or the Longbeards DLC, they made pretty much an identical unit to this, but only having more ammo, which also is a completely useless unit for multiplayer. Germanic Lancers, very nice, very cheap Lancer unit, can do a number on infantry. The Light Moorish Cavalry is an interesting unit, and when I say interesting, you already know what I mean. It's shit. So it's very light shock. It's very fast, which is its main selling point, I guess, over the Germanic Lancers. But yeah, no, just no. The Royal Suebi Cavalry is a very tanky shock cavalry unit. It will die to enemy melee cavalry, however, so it's mainly an infantry killer, but it, in my opinion, melee cavalry is always going to be more important than your shock cavalry, because melee cavalry wins cavalry fights, shock cavalry doesn't. For skirmish cavalry, we have a bunch of useless, low health, low armor units that don't have Parthian shot, and as a result of not having Parthian shot, although they have nice abilities like rapid advance, resistance to fatigue, the ability to ignore terrain, you can't really use that because they don't have Parthian shot, so they will just be running away from the enemy and not be able to fire very effectively because their turn speed is slow. Now the dog units are interesting. I love dogs. The Sarmatian spears that come with them are not great spearmen. You only get 30 men per unit on large unit sizes. The same with the Alani spearmen, they are slightly better spearmen. Heavy warhounds, very heavy warhounds. They still die in droves to any sort of decent unit, but they can be very annoying. If your opponent doesn't give attack orders on them, they can actually do a lot of damage to moving infantry and cavalry. But cavalry will just ride straight over them, and it's difficult to use dogs effectively. They are definitely a liability in your army. And they have the encourage ability and rapid advance as well as expert charge defense, so it can be fun with these guys to send out the dogs and then go hunting for cavalry units with the Sarmatian spears, but it's more on the fun side than it is on the effective side of things. So let's have a look at their units. Land battle, yeah, okay. We can have a look at them on Alabu, which lies in Denmark, I think. Okay, so let's turn them around a bit here. Now, one of the main strengths of the Vandals, in my opinion, the Germanic archers and the abundance of melee cavalry. Here we have the Germanic brigands, the Germanic raiders. A lot of these units are very similar across the factions. Germanic hurlers, noble Germanic swords, very good unit for the price. Germanic band, light Moorish cavalry, cool looking unit, but sadly not very effective. Typhali cavalry, another cool looking unit that isn't effective because they only brought 2 arrows to the battlefield. Germanic mounted warband, and let's see here, Germanic horse, awesome unit. Noble Alani, decent unit. Noble Germanic horse, hello. Cheap Germanic pikes. Royal Swebby cavalry, strong shock cavalry unit. Vandal warlord, very useful general. Alani horseman, another decent unit. Germanic lancers, love these guys. Then we have for infantry, we have the Germanic warband, don't bother. The Vandal berserkers, don't bother. Germanic levy. Alani spears with dogs. Sarmatian spears. Just look at this. These guys look absolutely awesome. It's too bad that the dogs are. They look to be seem to be very low resolution or something like that. But the men look awesome, and the shields. I mean, these shields are. Whoever did these shields need to make more shields for more units. The noble Swebby swords also have very cool shields. One of the best sword infantry units in the game. I'm not even counting Uars because they are an absolute anomaly when it comes to swords. Vandal raiders. Let's see, which units haven't I taken a look at? I don't think there are any. Yeah, of course, the Germanic crossbows and the Germanic archers. So let's have a look at a few builds for the Vandals now that we know how what they look like. So I'm going to divide this into I'm going to divide this into, let's say, balanced, rush, and competitive maybe. So, and skirmish. I'm not going to show specific skirmish builds, because in my opinion it's very hard to have pure skirmish builds when you don't have any viable skirmish cavalry. So let's first go for the competitive build, and we're going to assume that you have the maximum amount of cavalry that you can bring is, or the maximum amount of the same unit you can bring is 6. So I definitely want to have a strong melee cavalry contingent. So I have 6 Germanic horsemen. They are triple gold. For infantry, I want a sturdy, tanky unit. So I'm going to bring some noble Germanic swords. So now I have 7 melee cavalry. 7 melee cavalry is very nice. But since I'm going to go full retard, which means competitive with this build, I want my cavalry advantage to be as substantial as possible. Which means upgrading my cavalry, bringing a lot of cavalry and upgrading my cavalry. So something like this is what I would do with the Vandals. You might even take a look at upgrading these noble Alani cavalry units slightly less and bringing an additional cavalry unit. But this is a very strong build. If an opponent pike box, you will lose. But the Brace General, together with these 9 cavalry units, very, very strong against most things, while the noble Germanic swords push up and get into cavalry engagements. You will win most cavalry engagements, but against some cavalry units you will need help, like against the Tagmata of the Eastern Roman Empire and stuff like that. But against those types of cavalry units, or basically against the Tagmata, what you want to do is you want to have your warlord close to the engagement and use the brace ability, get the bonus on your noble Germanic swords, get the bonus on your Germanic horse, and be very aggressive with your cavalry on his infantry, so the infantry isn't able to support the cavalry fight. So now that that's out of the way, if you want to play nice and play a build that's a bit more fun, I guess. So the competitive build would be a rush build. You're going to rush with cavalry. That is more effective than rushing with infantry. If you want to go for a slightly more fun and balanced build, you could do something like this. Let's see here. You're still going to want Germanic horse. It's just a bit of and in this build I'm not going to upgrade anything. I'm just going to bring different units basically. So fairly strong skirmishing, able to deal with cavalry. You don't have a lot of melee cavalry in this build. You have these pikes in the center to protect the Germanic archers, and you're going to want to be forcing engagements to happen on your flanks with this type of build, because you have a fairly long line of pikes. What you want to have happen is you want to force the enemy out on the flanks, all the while pouring fire with your Germanic archers into the enemy. Take care of infantry with noble heavy swords, tie down cavalry, and support with spears. So this is a more balanced, potentially more fun build to play with. It can still be effective, but it's much harder to use than the first build I showed you, and it can also deal with a wide variety of enemies. So that's it for the Vandals. Main strengths of the Vandals lies in their abundance of melee cavalry. Everything else is basically just the supporting cost, but Germanic archers and noble Germanic swords as supporting cost makes for a fairly strong faction. Strength and honor. That was horribly pronounced. I'm going to say that again. Strength and honor. There we go.